Good evening, it is March 29th, 2017, and I'm doing an updated video on the threat for severe storms on Thursday, March the 30th, 2017. Didn't think that I would have to be doing this when I was posting my weekly weather briefing back on Saturday, but it does appear that not only did we have to deal with bad storms on Monday, but we also have to deal with them today too. And right now, things are pretty quiet. We do have very warm temperatures, around 77 degrees here in Graves County, 75 being reported as of 5:30 in the evening in Paducah, 77 in Murray. So some very warm, humid air coming in right ahead of that cold front that is lifting through, a warm front that is lifting through the area right now. Cold front will be coming through tomorrow. Notice how we do have an increase in clouds as well. That is that white that you see on the map. That is the radar that is picked up, that is the visible satellite, and that is reflecting off of the cold cloud tops that we have as some high thunderstorms are off to our west. Notice how it gets even more white as you get off towards where those showers and thunderstorms are at. Those are starting to fire up in parts of Arkansas and Missouri. They are moving towards the north-northeast at around 30 to 40 miles an hour, maybe a few storms moving a bit faster. And you can expect the same speed for our storms coming in for tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. We have two rounds of storms that we're going to have to deal with. One in the morning, that will be a weaker round of storms. The second round, not everyone's going to get hit, and that will be in the early to mid-afternoon hours, say between 11 and 4 in the afternoon. I'm honing in on that time frame for some showers and thunderstorms to possibly become severe coming into the early to mid-afternoon hours tomorrow. We also have this upper level trough that is beginning to dig into our area. You can tell here's that area of low pressure at the surface. It is starting to move off towards the east, and it is going to continue to do so. Once it gets into Missouri, it will start to take a more northeasterly turn, and that is going to add some spin to the atmosphere for our storms tomorrow, and that is why we are introducing the threat for a couple of isolated tornadoes. Remember, not only are we getting hit with these storms, but people to our south, to our west, north, and east of us. So it's not just us that have to deal with the threat of severe weather. So we're covering a large portion of real estate that has to deal with the severe weather threat for tomorrow. So that's a large area that we have to forecast on to say, hey, you have the threat of seeing damaging winds, large hail, and isolated tornado. So that doesn't mean that every single house, every single property is going to get hit with one of those three things. It's going to more than likely be spotty, and if you do see one of those, then it could be quite intense. So just keep that in mind as we go into tomorrow. I'm going to be throwing a lot of maps at you, so please just stay with me because this is a very important threat that we have to cover going into tomorrow. Here is your key down here at the bottom. I'm going to move the map so you can see the timeline that we have here at the top. This is your time. I will be telling you the times as we walk through the maps because I know that you can't read these times when they're in the Z format instead of the actual time. But this is the 3 km NAM model, and notice how it does bring that line of showers and thunderstorms. This is bringing it in a bit earlier than other models are showing. It's bringing it in around 3 o'clock in the morning. I think this is going to be a little bit delayed. I think these lines of showers and maybe a couple of thunderstorms will move through around the mid to late morning hours. So say around 5 o'clock in the morning through around 9 or 10 is when I'm honing in on that time frame for the first round of storms to come through. And then the second round is going to come in. As you can tell, already some isolated supercells forming, and this will be at noon on Thursday, and these are beginning to form and will be quite intense. Notice how there is a line of spotty individual storms. That is what we call supercells, and that is not what we want to see, but notice how they are beginning to form and move off towards the east and northeast, and they are moving very fast. Already by 9 p.m., they're already in central and eastern parts of Kentucky. So these are going to be fast-moving storms, not a whole lot of time for you to prepare for this round of weather coming through the area. I also want you to keep in mind that these storms are going to be coming through either during school hours or just right after when students are getting on the bus and bus drivers will be out and about. So please take that into consideration. This is not a very good time frame for us to be having storms moving through. I would rather it be later in the evening or early in the morning rather than this time that we're going to be looking at. But unfortunately, that is what it is shaping up to be. At least it's not going to be during the night when everybody's sleeping, but a lot of parents are not going to be home when these rounds of storms are coming through, when their child might be home getting off the school bus. Different situations are going to be in play tomorrow that wouldn't normally be occurring if this was later on in the afternoon or evening. So make sure that your child knows what county he or she lives in, and they know how to receive weather information tomorrow in case they're under a warning, and they know where to go to shelter if they are under a warning that requires that. So keep that in mind if you're a parent watching this, that there needs to be a plan in place, not only for you, but for the child that will be at home tomorrow as well when you're not there to protect them. Here's our temperatures for tomorrow. Notice how we get into tomorrow morning. We're seeing very warm temperatures for the morning hours. You're going to be waking up to mid-60s for morning lows in the morning on Thursday, and then once we get into the afternoon, those temperatures won't be rising a whole lot because of cloud cover, and notice how those temperatures will be topping out in the upper 60s to low 70s. Our storms come through around 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon according to this model. That knocks our temperatures down already by 6 p.m. in the upper 50s to low 60s, some rain-cooled air moving into the area by that time frame. Let's go ahead and look at dew points. A lot of moisture to work with tomorrow, so some heavy downpours will definitely be a possibility. So let's keep that in mind as well. Not really going to be looking at a flash flood threat because these storms are going to be moving so quickly. So it seems like, a 20, 30-minute storm and it's out of there. So that's not going to be enough time. And these aren't going to be, I think, heavy enough storms to produce a lot of flash flooding across the area. But there could be a couple of localized spots that pick up a ½ inch to an inch of rain in a short amount of time. And that could cause some quick flash flooding, and then it would quickly recede. Our dew points, as you can tell, as I just went through here while I was talking, you can tell that we do have upper 50s to low 60s. That is plenty of moisture for the atmosphere to work with in dew points as we go into tomorrow. Dew points is a better way to measure the moisture than humidity is, so that's why I'm showing you dew points instead of humidity, but both of them you can look at to measure moisture in the atmosphere. Our winds, I'm not going to show you the wind maps. The wind is going to be gusting to around 10 to 20, maybe up to 30 miles an hour tomorrow, but 10 to 20 will be the main sustained wind that we're going to be looking at for tomorrow. So that's another thing. We do have some wind shear to work with. Our lapse rates is what is showing us basically how steep the temperature is cooling in the atmosphere. The more we see it cooling, the more you go up in the atmosphere. That's going to be the higher the lapse rate, the steeper the temperature is dropping. So this is going to be a little bit on the weak side tomorrow. Our lapse rates are going to be spiking overnight tonight and then weakening as we go throughout the day tomorrow. And that is not going to be a good thing for severe weather, because that means that we're going to be looking at, okay, it becomes a good thing in the fact that it's going to weaken the severe weather threat, but it becomes a bad thing if you're wanting severe weather just because it's not going to destabilize the atmosphere as much as it would if we had some higher lapse rate numbers. So because the atmosphere is not going to be, very destabilized tomorrow, is going to keep the severe weather threat down, in my opinion, a little bit. And I do not agree with the Storm Prediction Center already putting us under a moderate risk for severe storms. I'll go over that towards the end of this video when I show you that map of the Storm Prediction Center's outlook. Let's look at some Kate. This is showing you how much energy is in the atmosphere, and we're not going to have a whole lot of that tomorrow, and that's mainly because we won't have a whole lot of sunshine between the morning round of storms and the afternoon round of storms. And because of that, we're not going to have a lot of sunshine to also contribute to destabilizing the atmosphere. If we do see sunshine, I'm not saying we won't, but if we do, then we will be looking at an enhanced risk for severe weather as opposed to what I am thinking right now. This is at 9 a.m. on Thursday morning. Notice how we begin to see a clear line. You can tell where the cold front is, and you can tell that as we get into noon on Thursday, we begin to see those numbers spiking up to around 2,000 to 2,500 joules of energy, and you can tell that is plenty enough to cause some severe weather. So we are going to have enough to, contribute to having severe storms tomorrow, but it's not going to be, a ton of energy. This is not going to be an event that we've seen back towards the beginning of the month. I think this is going to be a severe weather event, but I don't think that this is going to be an outbreak of tornadoes or severe storms. I think we're going to have spotty severe thunderstorm warnings, and if the atmosphere really doesn't destabilize tomorrow morning, we're really not going to have a good handle on seeing if we're going to be having severe weather tomorrow until around the mid-morning hours to know whether or not this atmosphere is going to be destable enough or unstable enough to produce severe weather in the early to mid-afternoon hours. So keep this in mind. This is still a developing event. We still don't know all the questions, or the answers rather, to the questions that regard to this event. So keep that in mind, if you will. As we look at the supercell composite, this is showing you basically the higher the number, the more likely you are to see supercells, and these are going to be moderate. As we get into noon tomorrow, notice how those numbers are starting to spike a little bit, and once we get into around 3 o'clock, you see a couple of little areas of yellow. That would be up closer to this number 10 down here, so it's not too high on the scale, but it is enough to have some concerns for sure. This is the significant tornado parameter that I'm going to show you my last map before we get into something else. Notice how as we get into tomorrow at noon, we're beginning to see those numbers spiking. Once again, a couple areas of yellow showing that we do have, some enhanced areas for possible tornado development. And then as we get into the later afternoon, early evening, that threat begins to diminish if this model is correct. Let's go ahead and look at a sounding. Haven't showed one of these in my recordings before, but I just wanted to show you basically the turning of the winds in height. This is your wind directions, just as you would read it as a compass, and I'm going to walk you through these time frames. Let me go ahead and move my map down a little bit so you can see the time, which is down here in the bottom right corner of your screen. As we get into midnight tonight, notice how our wind shear is beginning to increase. The brighter the colors, these are measured in knots up here. Of course, this is not right at the surface. As you go from the ground up, you're looking at temperatures also decreasing, but you're looking at the winds increasing, and as you go up, you're going higher up in the atmosphere. Let's go ahead and get to 6 a.m. tomorrow, around the time when that first round of storms is going to come through. I want you to notice this yellow line right here that you see where my mouse is. That is in measuring some CAPE, and I already showed you CAPE. It means energy, and this is showing some elevated CAPE, which concerns me for some hail. We will have enough elevated CAPE tomorrow to concern me for some hail, so make sure that you are aware of that. Large hail is going to be one of my main threats. Damaging winds, and then isolated tornadoes would be the lowest threat that I have concern about for tomorrow. We won't have a whole lot of turning with the winds in height. When you want spin in the atmosphere, you want your winds to be coming out of different directions as you work your way higher up into the atmosphere, and the winds are coming out of slightly different directions as we get into the peak time that I think we'll be seeing storms. This is at 3 p.m. on Thursday, and notice how a lot of our wind barbs are coming out of the same direction, so that doesn't really concern me a whole lot with spin, so I don't really have a whole lot of concern with tornadoes tomorrow. Notice how our yellow right here, the CAPE, is beginning to decrease rapidly once the storms move through. This would be by tomorrow evening. Let's show you the Storm Prediction Center and what it is showing for its outlook. It's going to take me a second to get this map up here real quick, and let me go ahead and turn off the national radar and get you a look at the Storm Prediction Center's outlook for tomorrow. So the red is your most enhanced threat of severe weather or severe threat for tomorrow. Notice how it is covering southern Graves. Of course, this will be updated throughout the day tomorrow. Most of western and central Tennessee, and then parts of Mississippi and extreme northwestern Alabama, and then Callaway, Trigg, southern Graves, parts of Hickman, Fulton, and southern parts of Hopkins County, or rather Christian County, for tomorrow. So this doesn't cover all of western Kentucky. It doesn't cover all of the Purchase area, just certain parts of it. Don't get too hung up on the colors. Don't think that Callaway and southern Graves, parts of Fulton, parts of Hickman County have a greater threat of severe weather than, say you just go into central Graves. Don't look at it that way. The storms are not going to follow color boundaries tomorrow. They're going to do what they want to do. But is this area going to be more susceptible to severe storms tomorrow? Yes, they are. But I do think that I don't think that moderate risk is, I think that's too high to go, and even enhanced risk I almost think is too high to go. I think slight risk would be a good threat for our area, and I know that's a big disagreement from the Storm Prediction Center, but we just don't have a ton of ingredients coming together for tomorrow's severe weather threat. But just in case we do see a couple of warnings or watches issued, please have several ways to receive those warnings or watches, and please, above all things, Stay safe tomorrow.